I am understandably excited about the content discovery panel. So please welcome up onto the stage, moderated by Mike Isaacs, Senior Editor at AllThingsD. We have Terry City, Vice President of the West Coast for BuzzFeed, Lila King, Senior Director for Social News at CNN Worldwide, Daniel Ha, Co-founder and CEO of Disqus, and Reeve Thompson, Product Manager at Twitter. Welcome them to the stage.
Everybody's strange.
Hey everyone. Okay, let's jump into it. We have probably the broadest sort of ranging topic in today's conference is content. Pretty much every other panel has been some form of content, I believe. So, but I think that, I think we also have like a real, I am sort of biased. I think this is a very interesting panel and I wanted it. So essentially I want to start with like, you know, something that I think each one of you guys is probably going to have a totally different answer to, which is like, what for your company, what does content mean? You know, like Twitter. I think of Twitter and I think of like the tweets that flow through my stream all the time, right? Versus the links that are actually in my stream that may be from one of these other companies on stage. So how do you guys sort of see yourselves in this sort of grander scheme of the content space, I guess?
Well, I think we do view content as both things, as tweets are content, and then there's also this additional content that's often attached to tweets through URLs, you know, and so I think we have a very broad view of what content can be, and I think we try to be as agnostic as possible, and we want the content to flow, you know, and we want to be that connection that allows people to share content.
Something that also, I'm going to just pick on you for a little bit. Something that also we talked about a little bit beforehand was just sort of like this difference between apps versus the web, right? And sort of content being relegated to, so say I'm an app creator, right? And I have all this stuff inside, like if I'm like Path or whatever, I do a check-in and then, you know, like, okay, that shows up, but that's not going to make it outside of my app. So if I'm like an app developer, you know, is that something you guys have to sort of think about, how that content moves freely? And I'm gonna talk to you guys about that too, but how do you sort of like deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the app space, hopefully we have a really interesting role to play there. You know, because we are, you know, one of the beauties of Twitter is the simplicity, and so it's really easy and fast, and that we have great integrations on mobile. We're already, you know, we're a mobile-first company. We sort of started being oriented around mobile, and I think we've tried to, especially like with cards and with deep linking that we introduced recently, we've tried to play you know, position ourselves to really help apps share that content and get noticed, and have a way for apps to be able to broadcast what's happening in those little walled gardens, because apps are sort of these little segmented off places. And so I think hopefully we can be this kind of connective tissue that exists between apps and sort of helps facilitate more action in the app ecosystem.
Right on. So let's move over to you guys. BuzzFeed. You guys have a very sort of interesting take, sometimes controversial take on content. Like I'm thinking of the buzzy word native advertising versus you know, actual articles that are written by journalists or something like that. How do you guys sort of see content sort of move through your site?
Various ways. I would have to say, you know, content really moves from our site via, you know, users that come to our site. I mean, 75% of our audience actually comes to BuzzFeed specifically to find things to share. So we find that our content is actually popping up everywhere on other social platforms, and other publishers are seeing our content and republishing it. So we're fortunate enough to have a lot of journalists as fans as BuzzFeed, so they're reposting our stories.
I repost a lot of your cat stories.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're using our own, you know, Twitter pages, our own YouTube channels to push content out. And content for us is really a lot of different things. It's serious news stories. You know, we have a very robust political vertical that breaks stories. We have, silly things like the timeline of LeBron James's hairline, which we ran yesterday. 23 cats who are extremely disappointed in you.
That would be every cat I've ever owned.
Yeah. So content for us it means a lot of different things on a lot of different platforms.
So I'm just sort of like, this is another thing we can probably talk about. This morning, Facebook announced, I think Casey brought it up earlier, that it's introducing hashtags, which is something you guys are very familiar with. And I'm just sort of like curious as to how the different, not just Twitter, but how agencies like CNN or BuzzFeed or even Disqus, in the comments section, how you sort of, do we even need hashtags? So every time I use a hashtag, it's totally tongue-in-cheek. It's like hashtag bullshit, or like not actually on the topic at hand, right? Except maybe if there's a conference or something. Do we actually sort of need this sort of organizational medium in order to surface content?
No. I think Twitter owns it and should be the only person that does it. And
take note, Facebook.
No, I love Facebook, but that's uniquely Twitter, and I think it should stay that way. Personally,
CNN.
I think I disagree. I think that, hashtag or not, it's incredibly important to have a kind of collection mechanism for things that are very similar. And to go back to your original question about what's content, for us, no surprise, at a news organization, we think of tiny discrete elements like tweets or videos or photos or things that people might send in through channels like iReport. Those are individual elements that together make up a story. A content for us is a story that's lots of discrete related elements that all have one thing in common, that is that they're verified, they're fact-checked, they're real, they're totally legit, and that's what matters to us, that we're able to look out across the sea of content and what people are saying about something and what they're photographing and expressing about what they're experiencing, and being able to say, this one's real and this one's not. And you see it in story after story. We're seeing it today out of Istanbul. There were reports that there was Agent Orange being used by police, and that's when you actually send a reporter out into the ground and say what, Agent Orange, really? People's faces are not melting off. That's not actually happening, and I feel like it's our responsibility to say that.
I think it's a really good point, but it's not about what we need, but what people are already doing. So right now, people are already using hashtags in their Facebook posts. So they're tapping into what a generation of users are already doing. Yeah. So with Disqus, it has nothing to do with status updates or posting without context, but we see people adding the same thing as a joke, like you said, hashtag bullshit, whatever it is. It's about what people are used to doing because it's this generation of usage. And it's not really a technology or an organization of information problem. It's really about, this is what people do. So let's tap into that sort of structure and get something out of it.
Are you cool with that, Twitter?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about that is that, a lot of the conventions on Twitter are actually user-generated. They came about organically. And they came about organically in large part, I think, because people were trying to solve a problem. And hashtags are a great way of sort of dealing with the noise. And the massive amounts of information that are on Twitter, and especially when you have public forums where anyone can put information in and anyone can get that information, it's part of a method of self-organization. And that's why I think hashtags feel so Twittery, because that's the type of interaction that's happening there. Right. And I think it's important that someone came up with that. It wasn't Twitter actually. Right.
Wow.
But I think it has
Google
such a natural it has such a natural fit there because
who was
of
the user that came up with that?
Oh, I'm not sure.
So his name's Chris Messina. He's now at Google. It doesn't matter. What I think is fascinating though is that Dick Costolo has continually said how Twitter has this sort of problem of, think of your grandmother or something, seeing all this crazy, at symbols and pounds and shit like flying through their stream, like it's very sort of jarring to try to figure out what people are talking about, So yes, there's this language, but it also can be sort of like an esoteric language in a way, and like maybe a barrier. And so Facebook adopting this or sort of validating that it exists or something is just very sort of, I wonder if it's going to be good for you guys, essentially.
Well, I think it speaks to the power of Twitter that people can use it in so many different ways, and so I think ultimately that's a good thing.
Okay, cool. So Daniel, I think you guys are in particular very interesting and sort of play into what BuzzFeed and other sites like Gawker Media do, which is sort of the comment as content, right? Like I go to some website. Sometimes I go to TechCrunch just to see all the like nasty trolling of the actual authors inside of it, mostly because like I fight with all the TechCrunch people all the time. But not really. Ryan's here somewhere. But I mean, do people? Sometimes it's also very off-putting. Like there's some real crap inside the comments section that makes it hard for me to even want to engage there. Is that something that I need to sort of, as a content creator, like, do I need to sort of go down in there and worry about the discussions going on? Are people actually coming to my website to engage in that sort of thing, or is it just like a troll pit for crazy people?
Yeah, so what we do, people think about as comments, but sort of true to the name, we think about what we do as discussion, right? So comments are nice because it's very accessible. People know exactly what comments are. It's fairly ubiquitous across the internet. That's the good part. The bad part is that some people think it's shitty, right? So comments sort of run the gamut of content. It's everything from, like a discussion forum. Those discussions are comments, to the stuff that you see on YouTube. Those are also comments. And
YouTube being particularly horrible in their comment section.
And there's one word that sort of encapsulates all those things. So, for us, we think that what we do at Disqus, it's really 50% of it. So 50% can be technology or experiences or software, but the other half is really about the management of communities. And no matter what you provide and no matter what you do as software, you can never make up for the fact that someone cares about what a community is. It really spends time in it. And you can see that stark difference between communities that are very well run because they have leaders, they have moderators that pay attention and really react to what people are saying, versus like big communal spaces where people are just saying things in reaction to something and people let it fly.
That's very interesting. So two news organizations, right, down on the end, like how do you guys sort of even deal with that community? You guys, I could go on BuzzFeed today as a commenter and create an article and then have it promoted into an actual post, right? Like I could create some crazy dog shit and then make it like on the front page of BuzzFeed, which I think is interesting.
Well, it's not quite that easy.
All right, lay it out for me.
We actually have people that monitor and look at the stuff that are
right.
And if it's interesting and it's funny or cool and our editors like it, then we promote it. But it's got to be something that sort of fits the DNA of our site.
Sure.
Something that's not too offensive, even though you could argue that we've crossed the line a few times. But yeah, it's sort of curated in a sense.
Yeah, no, it's definitely curated. I just think it's very interesting that you draw on the power of people that actually care about whatever enough to create it and then push it up there. Like do you have to sort of like you devote a few different people to sort of like curating this stuff and
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we get tons of it now, so it's getting tougher and tougher. Right. I think we have to get a lot more people to do this now because everybody thinks they should be on the homepage and thinks they have something funny and interesting. So
that's sort of the interesting thing about BuzzFeed, right? You guys are not trying to be everything to everybody. There's a fairly discrete personality to what BuzzFeed represents.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right.
That resonates in the community and what people say to the content.
Yeah, and that goes the same way with our brands. We have a lot of brands that want to work with us, and do things and promote things in the way they're accustomed to promoting them, but they don't align with the values of our site. So, we've walked away from some pretty large deals because we wouldn't do splashy takeovers and blow up the front page of our site, and so yeah, we take that very seriously.
How about CNN? How do you guys sort of deal with this whole commenting moderation sort of deal?
Yeah, well, we use Disqus, actually.
Oh, good for you. That's good.
Yeah, so maybe that's why we're here on the panel together today. But at CNN, commenting happens. There's a pretty robust group of community managers inside the newsroom at CNN.com who look after both comments on the site and also what's coming in through iReport, which is the citizen journalism component of CNN. And one thing that's kind of interesting in the comments, I don't want to sit here and pretend that there are not stories that are crazy troll pits. I mean, that certainly happens, and CNN's audience is so mass, and it attracts a little bit of everything. But
your audience just got bigger with your partnership with us.
That's right. Yeah.
That was smooth. That was a good way of mentioning it.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. But one thing that we've seen over and over recently that I think is really interesting is that CNN has put a lot of investment in the past couple years into its opinion section and finding voices to write op-eds, and we've started sourcing some of the op-eds from the comments. And one thing that's just fascinating to me is that op-eds that start from comments and people who are really engaged in the conversation tend to draw a pretty significantly higher percentage of their traffic from places like Facebook and Twitter than op-eds that don't start from conversation, that are just somebody making a phone call to some dude who's written a book. Which says to me that it's we look to the comments and we look to signals for what's gaining traction and what people are upvoting versus downvoting, right? And what people who have kind of consistently written on a topic or commented on a Chavez story over and over and over and over again, and they've sort of created their own kind of audience and group of people who want to help share their story.
We've seen CNN do a really good job doing that sort of content creation or discussion curation out of what people are saying, because in a brand as broadly exposed as CNN, something that where everyone sort of knows what that is and would visit CNN as a news source, the audience is very diverse, right? It's not really a small meetup, it's not really a specific group, it's a pretty large slice of America and outside of America. So it starts to look something closer to Twitter, where there's a lot of content, there's a lot of people saying things from a bunch of different backgrounds, and it really requires sort of that curation and attention that CNN gives it.
Well, and there's this sort of one interesting thread here is this democratization of content creation.
Yeah. Good job. I was totally going to get to that. I was
sorry.
No. That's do my job, you jerk.
All right, no worries. So, no, but I think that's an amazing thing, and there are different roles that everyone has to play, but I think that's this incredible power we have now is that, anyone can be a content creator. And I think the role of curators become more and more important. In some ways you can almost say a hashtag is a type of curator. For all this, I think that's the underlying theme, which is this really amazing thing.
That's sort of what I was angling to get at. I think that Twitter plays this very interesting role in that. So I'm thinking about the Boston bombings a few months ago or whatever, right? I was in my hotel in New York at 10 at night or something, and the dude is in the boat, and everything is crazy, and we don't know what's going on. And so I have CNN on the TV, right? And then I have Twitter, I have my TweetDeck thing open, and all these tweets are scrolling through. And most of my attention was on Twitter the whole time, right? And
yeah, that's how I found out.
And I was tuning out CNN, and you can say, so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing though, because there were social media managers that were retweeting complete crap and would have to rescind stuff, So this democratization is in one way it's awesome because we're on the ground, but in another way it's what do I believe,
And I think, I think CNN is doing a great job of figuring out how to exist in that new world. Like, there was this story you guys did about the tornado path, and and a writer went and walked along the path of the tornado, tweeting along the way, and then at the end, writing a story that encapsulated all those tweets and providing the larger context. And that was this amazing interplay between those two experiences. And I think that there's a lot of value to be created there. But it's not an either or. You know, they can work together.
Yeah, hashtag tornado walk, by the way.
Did it work? Did people actually follow the hashtag when he was tweeting it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then what's interesting about it is that he came back home from Oklahoma and like actually wove a narrative out of the snapshots that he'd taken along the way, and like tried to see like he walked 17 miles and met so many people and took pictures of these like absolute horrible devastation, and in the midst of it, it's kind of hard to make sense of what you're seeing, but then you get back and you look at all that whole string of tweets and images and interviews and people you met, and you're able to kind of construct like the narrative that is the tornado. In the case of his story, like that the tornado didn't necessarily destroy like that entire town, right? That it was that they'll overcome it, and it's about like the context and a story out of all those elements.
Okay, I have a question from from Twitter, I guess, for you, for BuzzFeed. Do you consider yourself a friend or possibly a competitor to content sites like Funny or Die?
Friend.
Elaborate, please.
I mean, look, I mean, they're, College Humor, Funny or Die, they pick up our stories. We pick up their stories. They're a partner that we monitor. We part of what we do as far as our content creation from our editors is we're paying attention to what's trending, what people are watching online, what people are sharing, and that helps us create, great content. So, yeah, our editors are looking at Funny or Die. We're posting some of their stories. They're obviously picking up some of our stuff. So definitely a friend. I mean, I don't think we really have an enemy out there right now. I think, I don't think we have a real, true competitive set.
Well, I'm thinking of who you have to have an enemy. I'm thinking you gotta.
No, I mean,
who is it? No?
At least I haven't read about any yet. There's some haters out there, but none that we feel are threatening to us.
People who don't like animals.
yeah. What's that?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, there you go. No, but yeah, friend for sure.
Right.
For sure.
So we're almost out of time, but I just want to get a quick. I'm a very product-oriented person, or at least in the stuff that I cover, and so I want to get a sense of where you guys all are in terms of actual products, software products on the websites or apps or whatever that you feel help your users sort of like discover content, I guess, in a better way. And I'll start with Twitter, who I often give a hard time for your Discover tab being sort of not fully there, right? Do you think that's fair?
So let me just answer it this way.
Yeah.
I've been at Twitter only for 8 months, right? And
You're a new guy. That's perfect. Just say whatever you want.
Yes. What do I have to lose? No. And so one thing I would say is that I think one of the great things about the company is very aware of the areas that are not as awesome as we'd like them to be, and working really hard on those areas. And so all the things that I'd like to answer, I can't talk about yet because
good company, man.
Yeah, well, no, because I think we're really working hard on some of those problems and have some amazing things, seriously, in the works.
Right on. Okay, cool.
That I can't talk about.
Just tell me when they come up. Daniel, what do you got going on?
I actually like the Discover tab on Twitter. I was using it earlier today. It's fantastic. Just want to say that.
Not in my product area at all, actually. So, but I appreciate it.
So a little context. So Disqus is known for commenting, of course. We're used on about 2.5 million sites like CNN. reaching a lot of different types of different audiences. Discovery is increasingly becoming an important part of how we think about product. So after commenting itself, discovery is the second most sort of used functionality. So we're driving, this is a new product for us in terms of like doing discovery within Disqus. We're driving over 1 million clicks toward publisher sites every day. And this is people who are talking about a topic they're interested in and hungry for more. And they're looking for something else to talk about. So, for example, if there was an article around Prism, it's not just articles around that specific news breaking out, but also around the topics of privacy, around internet policy, and people are sort of using what we're doing to kind of branch out and have further discussions. So there's a seed there that we're excited about, and we're just expanding on that.
Right on. Lila, we gotta end. So you real fast, and then at the end, Terry.
So we think about it a couple of ways. One, like how we craft our content so that people who might like it would actually find it. So like CNN acquired a company called Zeit not all that long ago, right? That thinks about like how to match your interest to stories, and you see that on CNN.com now. And obviously we think a lot about how those same rules apply to reporters who are trying to figure out like where they should be focusing and what they should be covering, and there's all kinds of fun stuff to do there.
That's like a whole nother panel. If we had like a LinkedIn guy here and like these acquisitions of the Zeits and the Pulses and stuff, that would be super interesting. But that's another day. Terry.
I would say, we're not really doing it through apps or technology. We're just doing it through partnerships and, launching new products. Our new partnership that everyone knows about with CNN. Our new BuzzFeed YouTube channel from a video perspective. So we're just, increasing our partnerships and, increasing products that continually push BuzzFeed content out there.
Right on. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.